Hello. For a change, let us begin a math lesson with a logic problem, a reasoning problem. Here's the problem. There are 7 houses in a row on a slope. Kylo, Senti, Millie, and Basie are 4 friends staying in 4 of these houses. Millie and Kylo are staying in the houses that are at each end of the row. Basie stays in a house that is at the center of the row, and Senti stays in the house that is to the immediate left of Millie's house. Can you identify who stays in which house? You may pause the video at this moment if you want and try solving this particular problem. Well, let me solve it for you now. So the first statement says there are 7 houses in a row on a slope, right? So it could be something like these. So we have numbered the houses as 1 to 7. 1 is on the left and the bottom of the slope, and 7 is on the right and at the top of the slope. Okay, now you could have numbered it whichever other ways. Okay, it doesn't matter. You'll end up getting the same answer. Right, now which statement do you think is the best one to start with? The first, the second, or the third? Well, is there any statement which definitely gives you that a person stays in that house? Well, it's the second statement. If you look at it, Basie stays in a house that is at the center of the row. So that is clearly a statement which at least establishes, okay, where does Basie stay? So she stays in a house which is at the center of the row. Clearly, as you can see, there are 7 houses, so that at the center would be house number 4. So Basie stays in house number 4. So at least we have been able to establish one such house, right? The other 2 statements do not help, as in they do not help us to uh, simplify or assign a particular house to a particular person. But nevertheless, we'll go and answer those statements. Millie and Kylo are staying in the houses that are at each end of the row. Now, you know that house number 1 and 7 are at the end of the row. So Millie and Kylo have to stay in these houses. But have they mentioned who stays in which house? As in, does Millie stay in house number 1 or 7? And Kylo, which one? Right? Nothing is mentioned. So we'll take 2 possibilities. The first possibility is where Kylo stays in house number 1 and Millie in house number 7. And the second possibility is where Millie stays in house number 1 and Kylo in house number 7. Because they have not mentioned who stays in which house, we need to consider both the possibilities. Now, which is the only statement we have not yet considered? It's the third statement. It says Senti stays in a house that is to the immediate left of Millie's house. Now, if Millie was in house number 1, where would Senti stay? Senti has to stay in a house which is to the immediate left of Millie's house. But there's no house available in this row at least, which means Millie cannot stay in house number 1. Millie has to be in house number 7, wherein Senti will then stay in house number 6, immediate left of Millie's house, correct? Which means we have now established if Millie stays in house number 7, then Kylo has to stay in house number 1. And there you go. We have figured out who stays in which house. But the big question that must be in your mind is, why are we doing reasoning? Isn't this supposed to be a math lesson? Well, yes. What topic do you think is this lesson on? Well, I'll give you a hint. I'll just modify the names of each of these friends. Kylo, Basie, Senti, and Millie to these. So I've just changed their spellings. Kilo, base, Senti, and Millie. And the base is nothing but meter, gram, or liter. So welcome to the session on metric unit of measurement. Remember, kilometer, kilogram, centiliter, centigram, milliliters, milligram, and millimeters. So that's metric unit of conversion. In this lesson, we'll look at some of the linear units of metric. What are the three things that we are going to learn in this lesson? We'll first establish the relationship between big units and small units and how are they related. Then we'll understand how do we convert from one metric unit to another. And finally, we'll take some examples and solve these examples to understand how do we convert from one unit to another. Right? So let's begin then. So we go back to the puzzle that we started with and how are they linked? Basically, okay, all we are trying to say is the relationship between the houses, okay, kilo, base, centi, and milli, is the same as the relationship between these units, these metric units of measurements, right? Because there's a gap of two houses between kilo and base, right? There's two houses in middle. Likewise, there are two steps in between kilo and base, right? Similarly, to go from base's house to centi's house, we need to go two houses on top, right? Similarly, from base to centi, you walk two steps up. Okay, so there's a relationship, there's a parallel which we can draw between these two. And that's why we started with that example so that it stays with you forever. Right. Now, before we begin the conversion, we'll first understand the relationship between small units and big units. Let's say we have a football field. What do you think is the length of the field? Well, it should be around 100 meters. Now, if I were to measure this field with a measuring tape, okay, in centimeters, what do you think? There will be more of it or less of it? Okay, so we have 100 meters. In case of centimeters, which is a smaller unit, right? Meter is a big unit. Centimeter is a small unit. Do you think there will be more centimeters or less centimeters? Okay, if I measure it, you'll find that there are 10,000 centimeters. So there are more of it. Correct? So as the units become smaller, you'll be able to fit more of it. It's common sense, right? It's something similar to this. Okay, in a bag, which is of fixed capacity, I'll be able to fit more of the small books compared to the large books, right? If I put large books, maybe I'll be able to fit one or two, but small books, maybe seven or eight, right? So as the units become smaller, you'll be able to fit more of it. What that means is if I'm going from a big unit to a small unit, like a meter to centimeter, then I always multiply because I need to create more of centimeters. From meters, I need to create more of centimeters. So I'll multiply. On the other hand, if I go from centimeters to meters, I'll go the reverse. I'll divide. Because I'm going from a small unit to big unit, I need to create less of it. Okay, there will be less of big unit and hence I'll divide. Just remember this before we understand the conversions. Now let's go back to the step and let's understand how do we convert from one unit to another. Okay, so let's say I have to convert from a kilogram to gram, a kilo to the base unit. Gram, meter, and liter are base units. So as you can see, kilogram and base units. Okay, how many steps are there between them? Three. And do I need to walk up or step down? Walk up, right? From kilo to gram, I need to go up. So I'll have to take three steps. And just remember, for every step you climb, you multiply by 10. So that's one step multiplied by 10, another step, and third step, which means you have multiplied by 10 three times. As you can see, 10 times 10 times 10, which is multiplied by 1,000. So 1 kilogram is 1,000 grams. So to go from kilo to your base unit, you always multiply by 1,000. Okay, how about from the base unit to centi? Let's say from meter to centimeters. As you can see, meter and centimeter. Okay, there are two steps, as in centimeter is two steps above the meter step, right? So you climb one step, you multiply by 10, another step, you multiply by another 10. So that's multiplied by 100. So 1 meter equals to 100 centimeters. Now this holds true for any other unit of measurement. Okay, it could be mass, length, or capacity. Okay, mass will be in grams, capacity will be in liters. Okay, so meters, liters, grams. Okay, what about centi to milli now? Okay, let's say from centiliters to milliliters. as you can see, from centi to milli, that's just one step up, right? Which means you just have to walk up one step, which means you need to multiply by 10. And hence, 1 centiliter is 10 milliliter. Or for that matter, 1 centimeters is 10 millimeters, and so on. Right. Now, what about the other way around now? How about from going from small unit to big unit? For that, you need to step down from milliliters or milli to kilo. You need to step down, and hence you keep dividing. So as you're stepping down, you keep dividing. So from milli to centi, it's one step down, so you divide by 10. From centi to base unit, which is meter, gram, or liter, you step down 2 steps, and hence you divide by 100. Remember, for every step you divide by 10. Every step you go up, you multiply by 10. Every step you come down, you divide by 10. And what about from a base unit to a kilo? That is 3 steps down. So 1, 2, 3 means for every step you divide by 10. So 3 steps will be divided by 1000. Right? I want you to remember this conversion diagram very well so that it will be etched in you and you'll be able to do the conversion really fast. Okay, let's take some examples now. Okay, how do we convert centiliters to milliliters? Okay, as you can see, centi to milli is just one step up. So you multiply by 10, right? So 1095 times 10 is 10950. So 10,950 milliliters. So 1095 centiliters is the same as 10,950 milliliters. Okay, what about this? 171 centiliters. How do you convert that into liters? From centiliters to liters, which is the base step, right? You have to step down 2. For every step you take down, come down, you divide by 10. So for 2 steps, you divide by 100. So 171 divided by 100 is 1.71. So 171 centiliters is the same as 1.71 liters. Okay, how about this? 0.0216 kilometers. What is it in centimeters? Now from kilometers to centimeters, you need to walk up, right? You need to take some steps up, which means you need to multiply. How many steps up? 5 steps. You need to multiply by 5 tens, as in 10 times 10 times 10 times 10 times 10, which is 10 to the power of 5. Correct? And 0.0216 multiplied by 10 to the power of 5 is 2160, which means 0.0216 kilometers is the same as 2160 centimeters. Okay, how about 524 millimeters to meters? From millimeters to meters, you need to step down. How many steps? 3 steps. So you divide 3 times by 10, which means divide by 1000. If I divide 524 by 1000, I'll get 0.524. So 524 millimeters is the same as 0.524 meters. How about 5.172 kilogram? How will you convert that into gram? Gram is a base unit, remember. So from kilo to base, you need to walk up 3 steps. For each step you walk up, you multiply by 10. So 3 steps will be multiplied by 1000. 10 times 10 times 10. So what's your answer? 5.172 multiplied by 1000 is 5,172. So 5.172 kilograms is the same as 5,172 grams. Finally, 0.024 milligrams. How much is it in centigrams? From milli to centi, it's just one step down. So you have to just divide by 10. So 0.024 divided by 10 is 0.0024. So 0.024 milligram is the same as 0.0024 centigram. And finally, here's something if you're doing for calculation in calculators. Okay, so let's say Andy works out the answer in meters to a problem and the calculator shows 12.4. So it's 12.4 meters. Okay, and he says the final answer is 12 meters and 4 centimeters. What do you think? Is he correct? Now, this is especially if you're doing the calculation in calculators. Okay, this is what it is, because calculators have this tendency to truncate the ending zeros, right? After decimal, if there are some zeros, the calculator doesn't display that. It just cuts it. So if you can see 12.4 in meters, is it 12 meters and 4 centimeters? For that, let's understand the conversion from meters to centimeters. Meters to centimeter, as you know, is multiplied by 100. So you need to multiply meters by 100 to convert to centimeters. So that decimal part 0.4, if I multiply by 100, that's actually 440 centimeters, as you can see. Correct? So it's not 4 centimeters, it is 40 centimeters. So your final answer is 12 meters and 40 centimeters and not 12 meters and 4 centimeters. So Andy is indeed incorrect. Okay. Well, here is some examples and some practice questions. Now that you've learned all those conversion, can you try out these questions, okay, to convert from one metric unit to another? And there are some challenge question wherein you have to order some units and add and subtract the units which are in two different units. So you may have to convert them into one common unit before you compare, add, or subtract. Right? You may choose to pause the video at this moment and try out these questions if you want. Well, that's the end of this lesson on metric unit conversion, especially when we're dealing with linear units. I hope you understood the things that were taught in this lesson. Okay, we did three things. We first understood the relationship between big unit and small unit. What do we do? Multiply or divide when we go from big unit to small unit and vice versa. Then we learned about uh, the metric unit conversions. Okay, what do we need to multiply or divide by if I'm going from one metric unit to another one? And finally, we did some examples. We solved some examples to try and understand how this conversion is done. I hope you understood this lesson. Thanks a lot.